Welcome to Graceguts&grit, the podcast about showing up, standing tall, and handling life's plot twists with just the right mix of grace, guts, and grit. No manuals, just real talk and survival strategies. So grab your coffee, your kombucha, whatever fuels you, and let's get into it, because showing up isn't the goal. Showing up boldly, unapologetically, and authentically, that's where the magic is. Your crown has been bought and paid for. All you have to do is put it on. This is a James Baldwin quote from 1985 when he was speaking at the National Press Club, and it's one of his most iconic lines. It's widely cited in conversations about Black identity, dignity, and self-actualization. It anchors this episode because it captures the soul of this podcast, and it speaks directly to the heart of Grace, Guts, and Grit. It's about the unapologetic claiming of identity, space, and self-worth. And he wasn't just talking about pride. He was calling out forces and dynamics that make us question our belonging and urging us to stop waiting for validation. I take this line personally as both a challenge and a call to action. And I think we could all do the same. Women, immigrants, people of color, and really anyone who's just unsure. You already have everything you need inside of you. Just take it and use it. You don't need permission. I have a personal connection to that quote because my entire life, I have been the person that was doubted. My potential was actually always in question. So let me set the scene for you. I was never the golden child. Instead, anytime I did anything excellently, which was 99% of the time, people always acted shocked. No one ever looked at me as a kid and said, "This child, she's so full of promise and wonder." I mean, maybe occasionally my parents would allude to my potential. It just was so exasperating. I remember when I went to get my O-level results, my chemistry teacher who read my result out to me, he looked flabbergasted. He honestly looked like he was having a stroke. And once in Ibadan, I was going home after a long shift. Around 2 a.m., and I was a resident. A cop stopped me and said, "Who are you? Where are you going at this time of the night?" My stethoscope, my white coat were in the front seat. The interior light was on. He could see all of that. And I said, "Hello, officer. I'm a doctor. I'm coming from UCH, University College Hospital." And he goes, "You, a doctor? If you're a doctor, then I'm a lawyer. In fact, I think you're one of the armed robbers terrorizing the neighborhood." And I had this long 35-minute conversation with this cop trying to convince him that I'm not an armed robber. I bargained for my freedom, basically. And to this day, I find it extremely perplexing why, if you had to choose between this young, tired-looking female with a white coat, a badge, and a stethoscope, what could she be, a doctor or an armed robber? How he could choose to stick with armed robber. As a medical officer in Lagos, a patient with full confidence told me, "Why don't you go and be a nurse in America?" And I genuinely wondered, am I on a prank show? What's it about me that convinces people that, number one, I cannot be a doctor, I cannot be anything other than the less alternative? Anyway, so I'm just trying to paint you a picture of how I was consistently overlooked my entire life. Not because I was not competent, but because I had been conditioned deeply and early to be agreeable and quiet. Growing up in my family, humility was like a vitamin supplement to be taken morning and night. And if you ever started feeling yourself, you needed to double your dose. Quick. I thought humility was grace, but I didn't realize it could also become a cage, like a shroud. But I kept going. I didn't think I needed to take any action to change my way of being, because I was just so conditioned to accept that as my status quo. Fast forward a couple of years, and I started a residency in America. the pivot that changed everything. When I moved to the US, the scenery shifted, but the questions followed the same script. Are you sure? Who are you? Should you be here? I had great mentors, thank God, but the doubt, it was persistent. It was pervasive. It was like a shadow followed me around. I'd walk into a patient's room and introduce myself, say, hello, I'm Dr. XYZ. And you could see the wheels turning. Oh, you're the doctor? You look so young. Where are you from again? Where did you train? Your English is so clear. Like they were expecting me to walk in mumbling and pointing. And then, of course, there's a universal, you must be my nurse. Despite my white coat, my stethoscope, and my badge that had it in red letters, doctor. And it reminded me, I've circled back to this same spot. Am I invisible or just forgettable? Do I give off Professor Pella's assistant energy, a famous Nigerian magician, when you just work hard but no one actually sees you because you're someone else's sidekick? Have you ever felt like you had to work double hard just to be seen, not to talk of being respected? It seemed like I was simply so unremarkable that I blended into the scenery. Tell me, have you ever walked into a room feeling out of place and unsure of how to fit in? I often found myself quiet, overthinking my words, trying to get in a word edgewise in a room full of confident people. Until one day, I asked myself, why? Why was I hustling for validation that I had already earned? It wasn't that I didn't know my stuff, because I was eventually placed on the medical Jeopardy team and we won a couple of competitions. And as a clinician, I could spot pathology a mile away. And I saw that the problem wasn't really my ability. It was really my discomfort with visibility, or rather, my subconscious discomfort with being fully seen. And I remember talking to another international medical graduate who I thought was just this awesome, self-confident human. And he said, and I quote him, I had to fake confidence until it became real, and then everybody adjusted. And that's when I knew this really wasn't about me. It wasn't about the essence of me. It wasn't about my capabilities, my medical knowledge, my clinical skills. Your crown has been bought and paid for. All you have to do is put it on. So that's what this story is really about. The day I finally reached up, took my crown and put it on. Well, I took action. I decided to fake it too. That self-confidence that he talked about. I faked it till I made it. And I'll hold on to that cliche until my dying day. I started doing things that projected confidence. I had this fire engine red suede flats. I loved them. They were comfortable. I wore them. They were an excellent conversation starter. And they cheered me up on tough days. I put on lip gloss like an armor. Your go-to methods may be different, but I believe in the power of these minor but effective confidence boosters. And soon enough, I was walking like I had places to be. My chin was up, I had a quiet smile. I may or may not have rehearsed that in front of my mirror. No need to grin so eagerly like I was at a dentist appointment. My eyes were unapologetic. I realized that we Nigerians, we've been conditioned not to look our elders in the eyes. You don't look them in the eye. But here, if you did that, you just ended up looking shifty. Like a criminal. If you walk into a room unsure of your place, people would decide for you that you do not belong. Your crown has been bought and paid for. All you have to do is put it on. That may sound easier said than done, but if you make it your personal mantra, you will realize that it's actually quite true. I stopped over-explaining. I let awkward questions marinate. And I got comfortable with uncomfortable silences. And then I smiled and moved on with my work because really, they were not paying me to answer your questions about my good English. And suddenly, I kid you not, something shifted. People started looking at me differently, with more respect. I got less dubious glances overall. Then when people asked me, are you the nurse or the doctor? It wasn't with grave doubt. It was just with some slight uncertainty. And I'd smile and say, I'm your doctor. And sometimes out loud, I would say, and you're lucky to have me. But usually I said that in my head. Because I have worked hard to be here. I passed my exams in flying colors. I learned a whole new system in less time than you can imagine. I show up every single day in my pristine white coat and doctor badge and my shiny new stethoscope. And you still ask if I'm the doctor. That's on you, ma'am. Sir, you need to broaden your mind. And so the lesson here is this. If you walk in a room unsure of your place, people would decide you don't belong. So how did I create my own space? I just let go of the need for permission. I just stopped explaining my presence. I strolled in like I belonged in there. We can go more into these in other episodes. But I remember what one of my mentors told me. You cannot please 100% of people 100% of the time. So be your awesome self. Just be your awesome self. And I decided not to worry about people's opinions. I mean, I may care what they thought, but I wasn't worrying about it. I wasn't losing any sleep over it because life is too short for that nonsense. That was my first real pivot. This was not about changing careers, not starting over. It was just about letting go of that self-doubt and that overbearing humility that no longer served me. It was a decision to just show up for myself and own my space, own my story, my person. And that changed everything. And it all comes back to this quote, this James Baldwin quote. Your crown has already been bought and paid for. All you have to do is put it on. So tell me, where in your life are you waiting for permission to claim what's already yours? You need to realize you're more ready than you think. Just go on and bet on yourself. That's where grace comes in. Give yourself time to grow, but realize I already am enough. I have everything it takes. Either way, you showed up, and that's the real win. Send me a voice note, message me, and let's trade stories. Anyways, thank you for hanging out with me today on Grace, Guts, and Grit. If something in today's episode hit home, share it, rate it, or just let it change you. So that's it for today's episode of Grace, Guts, and Grit. If something resonated with you, made you laugh, made you think, or made you say, whew, I needed that, do me a favor, subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, Grace keeps it classy, Guts takes the risk, and Grit gets it done. And you, my friend, were built for this. So see you next time, same place, same energy. Until then, keep showing up and owning your story.